Welcome to the Education Evolution. We are live today, and by we, I mean just me today. We are going to give people a couple of minutes to roll in before we start the show, but the show will be started shortly. I'm actually really excited for what we're going to be talking about today because I know that it's top of mind for a lot of people right now. Welcome. Getting some people rolling in. We will get started shortly. Gonna give it about 30 more seconds or so. Okay, let me make sure. Oh, Jihad, you're in. Y'all catching me on a very professional day because I got my professional attire on. I almost forgot to take my name tag off. I was in it today, doing my serious job. This is my song right now on repeat. All right, and we are gonna cut that song, cut it short. Whoo! I'm so excited. Okay, you have now joined the Education Evolution. This is a podcast for the thinkers, the doers, and those who know the most important lessons aren't always learned in school. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the Education Evolution, this is a podcast for the lifelong learners, like, period. I am Lindsay, affectionately known as Miss Black, and I'm your host today. Usually, I am here with my counterpart. However, Mr. Jihad has left me for dead, so I'm on my own. No, he didn't leave me for dead. He also has a serious job, and so he is on a flight right now. He's actually in the chat right now because that is how superstar of a co-star that I have. Anyways, so this is actually the first of many. It's my first solo. This is the first crossover between Education Evolution, my podcast, and then Life Through My Lens, which most people know if you follow me on Instagram. I just allow people to provide a topic and I share my perspective. So today, since I am solo, I will be sharing my perspective on topics that have been provided on my personal Instagram, but then also on topics that we have actually discussed in previous episodes this month that are accessible on YouTube right now. We are going to learn a couple of things today, y'all. Okay, let's let's get us started with a bit of an icebreaker, shall we? One moment, please. Let me go ahead and pull up this text for y'all. All right, yep, I'm finding it. I'm finding it. Bam, we got action. It's been so long since I've like done anything by myself because I taught during the pandemic, so I am fully aware of what it means to have to present on Zoom and do everything all at the same time. Okay, I am going to now drop. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Type something new. Okay. All right. Maximum characters allowed. You know what? We're going to do this the old school way. I'm going to drop something in the chat. And this is a real easy task. Uh I'm dropping the wrong thing in the chat, y'all. Hold on. Rewind. Bam. Okay. We have arrived. All right, in the chat, you should see a sentence. And what I want you to do is I just want you to read the sentence out loud, wherever you are right now. Just read it out loud. Okay, I also just displayed it on the screen here. I'm not going to read it out loud just yet. I want you guys to read it. Okay, most of the viewers we have, I would have assumed, have read that quickly. Now, you're probably wondering why the heck did she just show that on the screen? Because there is a trend right now where there's a guy on the internet, I see it on Instagram, he catches people What looks like they're leaving a party a little bit inebriated, like maybe leaving a bar. And he has a note card and he has them read it out loud. And half the internet's reaction is like, basically, people can't read. Okay. So the sentence says the dog's unwavering loyalty exemplified an unreciprocated emotional dependency. Now, my question for the people that are watching, can you read? No. Did you read that fluently? Like, did you mess up any words? And these are real questions that you could drop in the chat, or if you're watching this afterwards, go ahead and drop it in the comments. Did any of those words mess you up? Can you understand why some people actually got tripped up by those words? Because I feel like, you know, as I was watching people kind of stumble through the words, most of it is coming from like, I don't know, people not even stopping to read, right? So, like, unreciprocated. A lot of people see and they see a whole bunch of letters and it's a long word. So they just skip over and their brain just fills in the blanks, which is, a skill in some ways, but it's giving that people can't read. Now, me, as I'm watching those, as a former educator, I'm just sitting there thinking about, damn, every day I take for granted the fact that I can read fluently. Okay. And I went to a high performing high school in Palo Alto. So I was part of a busing program. I'm from East Palo Alto, which is, they're not even in the same county, but that's where all the color was. So that's where all the black people were. And as you can imagine, based on government policies, that the more affluent side was Palo Alto, which happened to be the side where the whites and the Asians lived. Nonetheless, my mother got me into the Tinsley program, which is a busing program. So I got to go to the higher performing schools in Palo Alto Unified School District. So I try to remember that I really am privileged to have had the education that I had for free, because some of the education I got, people are paying private schools for that in other states. But damn. I'm just like, we got to slow down, right? We got to slow down. So that was our warm up for the day, okay? Because we're going to first talk about the literacy crisis. But let's rewind just a little bit. If you are new to Education Evolution, or maybe you're not new, maybe you just don't know, but we drop episodes every Wednesday. And if you're not subscribed, I need you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube now. We have different types of episodes and we kind of just go through them. We circulate through them. So the first Wednesday is always lifelong learning. Usually, this is where we're presenting new information for people to learn and to discuss. Today, we're talking about the literacy crisis, because this month I talked about the literacy crisis in my episode and the No Child Left Behind Act, because we got to dig into some myths around that. The second week is tech evolution. Jihad had a really nice episode this month where he talked about tech and how it's evolving, right? But more specifically, facial recognition and biometrics. And then we have Hall Pass to the Real World, where we're just talking about current events, basically, with our education spin. But sometimes the current event is in education. So today, we don't have an episode on these, y'all. This is just freestyling. The HBCU buzz. I'm sure some of y'all heard about the do-rag bonnet policy or the students getting disenrolled. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I want you to know that as I am talking, please go ahead and type in the chat any thoughts or opinions that you might have, because they're all relevant. Like, we're in a open forum discussion today. Okay. I always have a lot of things to say, but I like to know what y'all also have to say. And that's really the life through my lens aspect that we're putting on it today. All right. Let's get into the literacy crisis, shall we? Now, the literacy crisis, I really tried to avoid placing blame. Okay. So no blame on the teachers, no blame on the parents, not really the curriculum. I really want people to understand the timeline today. Because I'm not saying nobody should be held accountable. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's important to know that, like, people are saying that kids can't read anymore, but it's really not that simple. So humans are born to speak, but we're not necessarily born to read. And let me break that down a little bit. When you have a baby, you're interacting with the baby, newborn, they don't come out talking, right? But you also don't deliberately teach them the different parts on how to move their mouth to speak. You do keep speaking to a baby, right? And a baby ends up picking up the fact that you're speaking. And then one day, mama, dada, no, all the baby favorite words, right? They end up speaking. But that's not how reading is learned, okay? And in the past, people have believed that if you just read or put a book in front of a kid, they're going to learn how to read. Some kids will, but most kids need a little bit more structure than that. Okay. They need to actually be explicitly taught that. It's not like learning speech. So I want to clear that up. Okay. Because our brain actually uses different parts that are used for different things in order to combine to learn how to read. It's complicated in there. We humans are amazing things. So the No Child Left Behind, I want to bring this up because every when I be in the comments on those literacy videos, sorry, they're not literacy videos, when they're reading off that note card and struggling through it, I see a lot of people be like, oh, that child was left behind. That child was left behind. Oh, God damn it, Bush. All these things. So I wanted to explain like the No Child Left Behind Act. Okay. Obviously not a reading curriculum. That might be confusing to people that just come and see it, but it's not a reading curriculum. It didn't tell teachers how to teach anything, let alone reading. It was an accountability law. Okay. So it was the first time that student achievement was measured, period, and nationally via a standardized test. Now, this was also the first time that schools had to publicly report performance by student groups. So, students with disabilities, English learners, economically disadvantaged students. It was no more brushing it under the rug and really just highlighting your like high flyers and the people that were high performing. So, I say all that to say when people be like, oh, that child was left behind, millennials, we are the children that were left behind. We were all left behind because we weren't being monitored. It's not a point of finger like who did it, you did it, right? People keep using it as like, oh, they don't know how to do stuff, or they don't know how to learn. But we technically were in that whole entire group. I want people to understand that as they're like, sometimes acting like they're better than others, but we the kids they was talking about, we're part of the group. Now, the benefit of standardized testing, which sounds crazy coming out of my mouth, is that, well, okay, the benefit of No Child Left Behind is that achievement gaps were visible to everyone, not just the advocates, not just the people that are like, well, let me fight for the students with disabilities. No, everybody has to be aware of the gaps with the students with disabilities, right? And everyone actually needs to come up with a plan, whether they execute it or not, whether they're successful or not, they have to come up with a plan to address those needs. Now, the criticism, obviously, is that these standardized assessments are not built for everybody, right? They have one lens in mind. And then schools got held accountable without the resources or staffing or support to hit the goals. So it's accountability without support, which is like, who does that actually benefit? So the children were all, now why is doing that? The children were already left behind. The act brought transparency to the numbers. It didn't necessarily cause it. So that's why it's hard for me to like point fingers when we're kind of all part of the story in different ways. Yeah, I think that's the best way to really explain it there. Um, and to like bring this out in the bigger picture, right? You go to school, you matriculate through a system, you learn a certain way. You then assume everybody like knows the things you know, or like can act the way you act around learning. Then maybe you go to college, or maybe you go to a trade school, or maybe you just go right into the workforce and you realize you like, wait a second, something's off here. Why you don't know 2 + 2 = 4? Okay. Why do you don't know dog is spelled DOG? Like, obviously, these are not real experiences, but I had a real experience when I got to Howard, right? And I'm a freshman taking an applied calculus class. Why? Because we needed to take math, and I didn't want to take something that I had already took. So I went the highest that I could go with my major, and I'm in a class with like a bunch of School of Business people. Mind you, I think I was undecided, but I ended up being school education. I'm in a class of School of Business people who have to like pass applied calculus in order to get to graduate. Like it's a requirement for their major. And I'm just doing this because I'm choosing to do it because I'm a little crazy. I like to learn. And I remember sitting there and understanding everything that teacher was telling me to do because I'm like, I learned 80% of this in like trigonometry and in like pre-calculus in at my high school. But I am like sitting there listening to like a group of seniors and juniors like trying to stand up against the man, aka our teacher, to say like they don't know the stuff, it's this, it's that. And I was silenced because I'm like, oh, well, this stuff isn't hard for me. So the point is that we don't all get it at the same time, right? And that's fine because you have opportunities to continue to learn before you really need to apply it in the workforce, right? But that gap often traces back to school systems and resources we came up through, right? And that all ties into this literacy crisis conversation and how we were all kind of left behind, not just the people who don't know how to read. There are other ways for us to be left behind. Whew. That was a mouthful. If you want to go any deeper, go ahead and watch my episode because I think it's a good conversation to be having. Now, we're going to move on to tech evolution. So, normally, this is where Mr. Jihad would jump in and take us into tech evolution. But since he left me for dead today, I'm going to handle this one by myself. Okay. So, while we were all cheering on teams, right, a couple weeks ago during the World Cup, when the World Cup became our personality, go Haiti. I was Haitian during the World Cup. Yeah. Shout out to the Zoes. Now, there were people who were actually in the stands, right, at the game, in it. Several of those stadiums were scanning fans' faces just to let them in. Okay. That might be news to some people. But real quick, do you live in a city where stadiums are taking your face as your ticket now instead of scanning an actual QR code? I want you to drop it in the chat if you do live in one of those cities because I live in one of those cities. Okay, let me give you a little personal story about facial recognition at uh, these stadiums. So I went to see. He kind of canceled in my head right now, so I ain't gonna say his name. But I went to a concert at the Intuit Dome, which is in Inglewood, California. It's where the Clippers play, and I remember getting the ticket. I was so confused. I'm like, why do we have to do all these extra steps? What is these extra steps? What is this? So they have a game, Clippers have a game face ID system. So what ends up happening is you purchase your ticket, right? And then you can upload your cards to the ticket, right? And then you also scan your face to be connected to the ticket, which is connected to the cards. Now, you can opt out, right? I opted out because I didn't understand why I need to scan my face to get up into a game. Like I got a little QR code. I thought that was technology enough. What ends up happening is that if you scan your face, they also scan you to get into the game. And then while you're into the game, you actually don't need to use your credit card at all because they're constantly scanning throughout the entire stadium. And you can actually like literally it's we're really in the future, guys. You can go up to like I don't know, a taco stand and just grab the tacos that are there. And by the time you leave, they would have scanned your face, attached it to an item you got, calculated how much that item was, and by the time you leave, your card's being charged. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but it is it's convenient for some people. Now there are a bunch of World Cup venues that have done this: the Gillette Stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium, or Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They all use facial recognition at entry, and I believe that the stadiums in Mexico are 100% biometric entry, like no physical tickets at all. So as I said, for some people, this sounds really cool. It sounds easy. It sounds super convenient. Like I don't have to put my card out. But what's the actual cost of that? What is the actual cost of that? And I'm going to give you a high level. You can go to the Tech Evolution episode and watch Mr. Jahad really break it down because he be breaking it down. Now, there were two MIT researchers that have studied, and they said that facial recognition misidentifies Black women nearly 35% of the time. That's a big percent of the time, especially for someone like Portia Woodruff, who was an 8 months pregnant woman. She spent 11 hours detained, pregnant, big and pregnant, for a carjacking she didn't commit because facial recognition misidentified her. And then there are at least 9 documented wrongful arrests in the US, like as of March 2026, tied to facial recognition misidentification. The problem is that in certain spaces, there's no public policy. So, like for FIFA, there's no public policy on whether FIFA will delete World Cup biometric data. Okay. The ACLU actually issued travel advisories warning fans about surveillance and potential data sharing with ICE. And then the MSG Entertainment, there was a breach just last month. Hackers published 45 gigabytes of data. Who I don't know how much that is, but it's a lot. It's enough. This included facial recognition records from up to 26 million visitors. That means that hackers have their faces. Now, somebody steals your password on Google, fine, you can reset it. Somebody steals a credit card, you can cancel it real fast through the app now. But you can't reset your face. I mean, you can, you go get some surgery, but you know what I mean. You can't reset your face. So there's some questions that we really have to ask ourselves as we're moving forward in technology. Technology is forever evolving. And our tech evolution episode is arguably one of the most important episodes because we really put y'all up on game around digital literacy. Because you got to ask yourself, who's collecting the data? How long are they keeping it? Who are they sharing it with? And what happens if there is a breach? These are all questions we need to be asking before we're just scanning our face, because tech is evolving faster than legislation, laws, policies can evolve with it. So we're in a risky place. We got to be really digitally literate and really aware because convenience is not free. The price of this convenience is your face permanently in some cases. So the least we can do is ask the questions before we walk through the gate. For real. Gosh, it's just mind boggling, So mind boggling. All right. Now, moving into what I think is going to be the juiciest part of this episode, y'all. Hall Pass to the Real World, again, is our episodes where we talk about current events. And if you don't know, I'm an HBCU grad. I went to Howard University. Yeah, first generation college graduate, babe. That'll become relevant as I get to talking. So, as most people are aware, if you're not aware, that's totally okay. Howard University had 502 incoming first year students disenrolled just weeks before the August 17th start of classes. Why, you ask? Unpaid balances, unmet financial aid, or like payment plan requirements by the university deadlines. Now, what I'm gathering is that in most of these cases, well, let me say some, let me not say most. These students have outside scholarships or aid, like including military aid, that simply just hasn't posted yet for whatever reason. Probably government reasons and probably the man down the street from Howard University. Anyways, so Howard, I went to Howard and I love Howard, but Howard has some room to grow. And I think that there are actually lots of entities and organizations that have room to grow when it comes to being organized and when it comes to disseminating information in a clear way. So the confusion, one of the pieces of the confusion for like others who weren't impacted by this aid piece, well, actually, they might have been impacted too. Anyways, there's a 50% threshold policy. Okay. So let's say you have a bill that's $60K. Your student aid covers $40K. Great. That means you have a balance left over of $20K. Now, what people understood was that, as long as I have met 50% of that $60K, then I should be able to enroll and then come up with a payment plan or pay it later. That's what it would have meant to me. Howard University comes out and says that actually, no, what we meant is the amount that you are responsible for, the person, not the student aid. You have to pay 50% of that. That has to be 50%. That's what has to be like 50% of that total bill. So many families assume the 8 alone had already cleared the threshold. Okay. That's confusing. Y'all need to clear that up. Y'all need to make sure it was clear. Now, Howard is going to say that they made it clear, but clearly it wasn't clear if there were 500 students that, didn't get that particular memo. That's a little bit tough. But I also get from the business side, and Howard has been having issues with money, and I think we kind of all know that, right? Like, if you keep, I get why they're like 50% of what your responsibility is, because that's your responsibility, your money, right? They know that the government money is coming, but they can't ensure that your money is coming, I guess. I'm spitballing here. So the other part of the confusion is that there was a deadline. I think it was like, let's say it was July 15th, right? And then there was another deadline that was maybe like August 3rd. Don't quote me, but there were confusion because they were different deadlines for different student groups. So first time students had a different deadline than continuing students. So I think that first time students saw that August 3rd and was like, oh, I can pay by August 3rd. But really, it was the July 15th date that was for them. So again, communication is just rough. It is just rough. And it's it's rough to get that message, to receive that communication that you've been disenrolled. What are you talking about? That would have been just so jarring for me. Like, so disappointing, so saddening. Like, that would have just ripped my heart out of my chest. Like, at this point, people have walked the stage. They said where they're going. They've like decorated their hats. They've had trunk parties, going away parties. Like, their families have purchased tickets to like move them in. Like, all this stuff. And college means a lot to most people, but to some people it means more. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a first generation college graduate, like, I'm putting the family on my back. You know what I'm saying? But if I'm putting the family on my back, right, and I'm the first person doing this, that's a lot of responsibility. It's very honorable. And then somebody just strips the honor from you. And it's at a university that you've invested in. So that was tough for them. Um, So fast forward a little bit, the interim president, Wayne Frederick, who was president when I was there, has publicly addressed it. He admitted the messaging could have been more clear and said Howard hadn't enforced deadlines this strictly in past years. Since then, 200 plus students have since been reinstated after individual review, and others will not be able to attend this fall, which is unfortunate. I knew when they said the 500 that all the 500 was not going to be attending. Unfortunately, I did realize that. But we have breaking news, okay? Because just about probably an hour ago now, I received an email from the Howard alumni emails. And President Frederick, I'm just going to give y'all the full summary because I want you to know you heard it here first. So he did open with an apology about how it affected students and families. Of course, politicking, you're supposed to do that. And then explains that enrollment deadlines let Howard finalize financial aid, housing, course schedules, and support services for the year. But of course. So he confirms the timeline that expectations were communicated March through July through aid notices, emails, Bison prep sessions, and direct outreach. Students also got extra time past the original deadline to pay, to pay and set up a payment plan or submit proof of pending aid. Okay, that's what they're saying. Then he confirms the number. After multiple communications and extensions, 502 students hadn't met enrollment requirements and were notified their spot couldn't be held. Then he frames the reasoning around it's not about prioritizing money over opportunity, which is what the narrative kind of has been in the ether in the real world. But it was about making sure students start with a sustainable financial plan, since enrolling without a substantial financial plan raises the risk of dropping out. He's not wrong, because it's people I came in with in 2012 that I did not graduate with in 2016 due to financial issues. So Howard has said it's completed a full review of every unenrolled student, and a significant number have been reinstated after verifying payments, scholarships, loans, veteran benefits, or like resolving billing issues. But there are students who can't be reinstated this semester. And Howard is exploring deferred enrollment for a future term. So that's nice. Um, and he closed with access and accountability are not competing values, framing both as necessary to protect Howard's mission. I want to know how y'all feel about this. Like, what are your thoughts? Because I know for me, from a like humanitarian perspective, like it was jarring for them to have invested so much like social, emotional capital. Let me say that. And then for it to be ripped away from them. Now, I also know the perspective of working for a school and putting the information in 1,001 places and somehow it still gets missed. It still gets missed. Now, this is not for the people who had governmental aid that didn't go through. Like, Howard, you kind of have to do better on that end because it's 200 people. That's a lot of people, right? And from a business perspective, that's a lot of money y'all missing out on because something happened in the back end where their aid, which is coming and delayed not because of them, is now negatively impacting them and making them get disenrolled. But it's coming and they can't do nothing about that. But it's their money. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just not something that's unique to 2026. That's all I'm saying on that end. I think my primary issue, well, let me say a positive. What I really liked is that there are schools, tons of HBCUs that have rolling admission, right? And then there are schools in the area, specifically UDC, which is also an HBCU in the District of Columbia, where the president has gone on the news and it was like, hey, we got room over here, baby. Y'all said y'all wanted to take y'all next steps in your what am I trying to say? In your education, in your life, and you want to live in DC, we can do it. Like, I love that they're making it accessible and just pivoting. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what life really is. Life is not life is not about having your dreams stripped away from you. That's really not. That's not what I'm saying. But life is about pivoting and it is about community and other people helping you ease the pain and the strife of making that pivot. So I really appreciated I don't know if it's an HBCU alliance. It could come off as a little bit shady, a little bit. But at the end of the day, these kids need options, you know? And what I like is that you can go to UDC for a year, and if Howard is offering deferment, then you could just transfer to Howard and still have that DC experience. So I appreciate that that is an option for the other several hundreds that, for whatever reason, are not able to be reinstated. It's tough. It's tough. What I hate though, what I really hate is people bashing my university on the internet as if this is a problem that's unique to Howard. I'm so sorry, but Howard is not the first school that's disenrolled hundreds of students. They're not. They're just not. It's 2026. They're just not. What I really, really hate, and people keep sending me this video, and I only watched it for research purposes. So I can come over here and really talk to you about something. But people that went to Howard that are bashing Howard, and they are using facts that simply are not facts. They're just not facts. So there's this narrative that's being pushed that, like, Howard wants to make you believe that Black is not a monolith. But yes, sure, people are from the Caribbean, people are from Detroit, but like everybody's rich at Howard. Everybody's rich. Everybody has money. So like there's certain conversations you can't. I talking about he done went to school for 4 years, ain't met nobody that don't come from a bag. That's not the Howard I know. That's not the Howard that's currently happening. That's not the Howard of the graduating class from last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am not saying that all first generation college students come from an economically disadvantaged background, but there's a good number of us. Okay. So for you to sit and say, as if you've met thousands of people at Howard, it's like 10,000. Okay. You're telling me you met 10,000 people and they're all rich. Also, I'm confused as to why you think that just because somebody from the West Indies has money and somebody from New Orleans has money, that makes them monolithic. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Howard is an expensive school, so of course money has to come somewhere. And it's just ignorant for you to say that. It was so ignorant for him to say that. I was so blown because I am not somebody that comes from money. Come from very humble beginnings, and I'm first generation college graduate, and I'm matriculated through Howard University. Okay, and it is absolutely possible. So for you to say that we don't exist is disgusting to me. It's just crazy to me. It's crazy to me talking about my kid will never go to Howard University. Damn, like you acted like something crazy really happened. You know what I'm saying? And somebody made a comment. I don't know this to be true, but they were like, "Well, that can't possibly be true about the whole money thing because there have been sit-ins at Howard, a lot of like political energy and fighting against these systems. That is Howard University because no entity is perfect." And they were like, that wasn't all them rich kids that was sleeping outside. Now, probably some, probably some. I don't want to just, make a full assumption. But it's like it's something to be said about the biases that people have, right? And what they choose to share and how they say it with conviction as if it is fact. And I'm not into like protecting things that are wrong by any means, but it is important that we are operating in fact. Period. So that stuff really bothered me. And I'm gonna close this out. I'm gonna speak a little briefly about this one. Tuskegee University. They said that for school year 2026-2027, they are announcing a new dress code that is banning bonnets and do-rags in classrooms, dining halls, and official campus spaces. It's also banning pajamas, bedroom slippers, and revealing clothing. So students that are attending business meetings or professional events must wear business suits and appropriate shoes. I'm I'm used to that. Now the president is saying that it's not meant to restrict students from enjoying the Tuskegee experience, but to give them a solid foundation for the workforce they'll enter after graduation. Um, this is interesting because the article that I read also stated that they tightened on a cell phone rule and made it stricter. Okay. Where like I need to be off during class. That's not going to happen. Maybe ringer off. And they have stricter attendance monitoring. So the bigger conversation is that this is being framed as commentators as the like latest chapter in a decades long conversation about respectability politics, Black identity, and expectations placed on HBC students before they even enter the workforce. I agree. I agree with that piece. Okay. Now the public is reaction is split a little bit. Some see it as continuing HBCU tradition, preparing students for a world that holds them to a high double standard, and others argue that banning do-rags and bonnets, which protect Black hairstyles, reinforces narrow ideas of what professional has to look like. Let's be serious, though, y'all. Let's be serious. When you say, I want to dress professionally, you're not grabbing your bonnet. You're not. You're not grabbing your do-rag. I'm sorry. And then some people are trying to make the argument of like, well, other cultures wear head wraps and blah, 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 blah. Yes, but like men like who are Sikh, they have head wraps for like spiritual reasons, not because they're trying to get their waves on swim. You know what I'm saying? I agree that respectability politics is a thing, right? And I do agree that it has detriment. But also, I don't know, y'all. We just don't live in a world where we can't have respectability politics yet, or what seems like respectability politics, because I also think that that term gets thrown around. Like there is a way that you need to dress based on how people are perceiving you in whatever role. Okay, if you are a plumber, okay, if I call you to come fix my toilet and you come here in a business suit, I actually think, do you know are you a plumber, do you know how to do this? I don't know. If you go to an interview with a do-rag on, the perception is different because why do you have the do-rag on? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is your reasoning? I myself am okay with a baseline expectation. Like, should you be somewhat presentable in class? Yeah, I don't think you should be wearing pajamas in class, and y'all can sue me if you think that. The bedroom slippers, no. I did that in high school, And that was honestly crazy for me to do in high school because what am I doing? Right. But I'm 17, 16, and I didn't do it at school. And I just also feel like now in the classrooms, yes. In the dining halls, you can wear whatever you want in the dining hall. Let's be serious. I'm paying for this food here. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just here to eat. But classrooms, y'all, I'm trying to tell y'all the way that being so lax on these rules or expectations, how it is impacting like people, the future. Okay. And part of it too is not even the college's fault. Like it's not Tuskegee's fault, right? But the education system, there's gaps in it where we are not teaching students in middle school like to have discipline, to have focus, to present yourself a certain way. We're not teaching them that. So they don't even have the range. Ooh, that's the word. So there are policies that may need to be enacted because students are not don't have range or they're not exercising their knowledge about time and place. It's true. This is not to say everyone doesn't know time and place. Like when I see a lady with a bonnet on that's on the plane, she trying to keep her hair intact because she got to go speak at the conference when she lands, and she'll be in a suit, and them curls will be whatever her hair is doing under there. It will be done. But a lot of people are projecting their own personal experience and what they know to be true for them. And I think that there is a range. There definitely are people that are going to go enroll at Tuskegee and they know how to dress. They know when to wear what and how to be where. They know that whether they're comfortable in class or not. But there also are people who have never been held to a particular standard. And this is not just about Black people because nobody should be wearing pajamas to class or slippers. Come on, maybe sweatpants. I can give you sweatpants, but the slippers, damn. But we just have to make. I don't see anything incredibly wrong with this type of policy. But I do think that there is room to talk about respectability politics and how they impact our community and to unlearn some things. I do absolutely do think that this is a good catalyst to have some of these conversations. But the slippers, I don't know. I might, you know what? I could be wrong in y'all eyes, and I'm okay with that. I'm definitely okay with that. But would love to know everyone else's thoughts on this conversation. And if you don't have thoughts this time, it'll come up again in 3 years because we have the same conversations over and over and over again. Oh, history repeating itself. All right, today we covered a lot. Thank you for being with me. We covered literacy, technology, current events, and honestly, that's exactly what Education Evolution is all about. I hope that you're walking away from this knowing a little bit more about these hot topics because there are going to be ongoing conversations that people are going to have. Okay. And people are allowed to change their mind. You might talk to me in 2 weeks. Somebody might have made a good point. I might come back and change my mind because we're human. That is the point of discourse, is to engage people and provide them with information to like go into other conversations sounding very intellectual. And I think it's our civic duty to have intellectual conversations about these things. And I hope you got some information and that it can provide a different perspective for you. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe, like the stream. I love the live streams because we usually get our most views on the live streams. But share with somebody, or at the very least, carry this conversation into the ether, please. And no matter where you are in life, never stop learning. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.